Hi Luke, how you doing?
Not bad. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, good. How's lockdown treating you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the question, most answered question, isn't it? Over the last 12 months, yeah, it is what it is. It's not been the most fun, but it's certainly not been the worst. My personal experience, so I can't complain.
No. Thanks for coming on. And obviously, we spoke during the week, and we wanted to do something a bit different, something that obviously we could put out to the listeners to um, make not just football based, but life based.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
that
I think that's probably down to the fact that the rest of your guests have been like fairly fair. They've done things in the game, whereas I haven't really. So we can't just talk about football, can
doing yourself a disservice.
we? Very
Um,
kind.
Yeah, so like I said, we wanted to have a bit more of a discussion, whereas previously I've obviously got on some guests and asked them some questions, and really I've enjoyed listening to them, and I'm hoping
Yeah,
the listeners have as well. But we
yeah,
thought maybe we'll do something where we're gonna have a bit more of an open discussion
yeah,
and have a bit of a um, loose range of points.
yeah,
And obviously, just to fill everyone in, me and you obviously go back many years to
yeah,
being at school together, and
yeah,
we've obviously stayed close with football and with you've played in the same team that I've managed and
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
coached together, and we've done various things together. I probably
yeah,
texted you more than my missus, probably.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's probably true. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And you're probably the person I've spoken to the most about football as well. So
Yeah, yeah. I'd say that's probably the same, actually. Yeah,
yeah, so it's good to maybe do it in a different way and give everyone a bit of insight into our exciting conversations.
yeah. This is where that we should probably tell them to sort of stop listening because it's not getting better than this, is it?
No. But again, we'd spoken during the week, and you said about doing something that's not just football based, and obviously, um, me running the TP90 business. Again, while it's got one degree of a focus on football, hence
Yeah,
the 90 bit in the name. But again, it's obviously a personal training business, and I really want to look at mental health
yeah,
and personal fitness as well as what it looks like in football.
yeah,
Good just to explore some points and obviously appeal to some different listeners, hopefully.
yeah, yeah,
Um, First of all, I wanted just to start the conversation a little bit about learning and self improvement. It was previous guest Matt brought it up about self improvement, and again, I went away just thinking straight away. It just prompted thought.
yeah. So, um, I guess I guess a lot of my so I'm 31 now, and if I'm honest, my dad always told me that education was wasted on children. And when I was a kid, I was a bit like, "What are you on about?"
Mm,
And as I've got older and older, it's so true, so true. Because when you're a kid and when you're at school, well, it was purely about the social. That's why I was there, and and maybe not so much with other people. I think our generation were a generation where university sort of became a little bit more accessible. Um, and these days, sort of the generations going through school, they're so geared up to looking ahead and what are you going to do and how it affects you and things like that. And although I had people telling me that, I didn't really pay attention to it, if I'm honest, because I didn't see the value in it whatsoever. Um, and I reflect on that now, and they were so right, and it was such a waste because I went to some brilliant schools, and and the teachers would tell me as well, and it sort of got wasted. And I think that's probably why I left sixth form with some pretty poor grades, B and two E's, and the B was in drama as well. So it's not real, is it? And
Could still win an Oscar.
Sorry?
Could still be up for an Oscar. Maybe there's a career there.
Well, look, there's not many people that can say that they've gone through GCSE drama and A-level drama, and out of the two final assessments when you're on the stage, you've got 100% in both of them. So there's got to be an Oscar in there somewhere, isn't there? But yeah, I left school with it and then sort of bounced around. I went from random job to random job, and eventually went, do you know what? I really like sports and sports coaching, so I'm going to go and do sports coaching degree. Was doing that whilst working full time in a bar and nightclub, and that's where I started sort of learning from Snorbs, from Ross, to be fair, who you've had on previously. He was one of the lecturers, and that process of self-development, reflection, looking back, right, what can I do differently? And that's where it really started now. And now I'm listening to God knows how many podcasts a week. Eddie Jones is my obsession at the moment, listening to anything that I can get hold of Eddie Jones related, and trying to develop from there, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing exactly the same. And to be fair, it really does sound similar to my background, really. And obviously we're at school together, and I did the same thing. I went to A levels and decided that was it, and didn't go to university, and decided to go. I always wanted to go into football, so went straight across to Ipswich Town and worked there. And again, while I stayed in the game for a few years, I then decided to go somewhere else and ended up in education for a bit. Again, I think you made a good point there with when you're at school, it is so much focused on, you need to be going to university or wherever, and you need so focused on the future. So focused.
I think that's particular in our part of the world as well. We do live in a sort of very middle class area of the world, don't we? Where it's expected that you go to university, you get a degree, and you go on from there. And yeah, I wonder whether other parts of the country and from different demographics, whether that's the same. But I think you're right. Yeah.
You said I'm not middle class.
I think you are middle class. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But I think that we are. I mean, you look at our school year. There's majority of them probably went off to university, particularly from sixth form. And it was at the time, I remember feeling very conscious that I wasn't going to university, and that sort of almost, you failed then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you sort of had a similar feeling or not?
I felt different about it because I never wanted to go to university. So I was never grade focused. I was never. I always wanted to go into football. I didn't need grades to get into football. I always wanted to go and coach full time. I was doing it well before I did my GCSEs on a part-time basis, and I was in no way focused on grades, and it was reflected in the grades I got. I didn't revise for exams. I didn't care about it. And do I look back now and wish I had done that differently? Yes, because ultimately I could do with a degree in getting more money, and these things do happen. But at the time I didn't, and I wasn't focused on grades because, again, I bought into wanting to go into football and didn't need it, so I didn't push myself for it. And do I look back, and now as an educator, I look back on some of the teachers we had, and I always remember, and I'm not going to mention teachers, but I always remember going back to GCSE, and I had it. I was doing my English, and I always felt I was a fairly good writer, and
Yeah.
I was all right at English, and I could do many things, and I never for once thought I would end up with a poor grade. And come the end of the year, my coursework was I was really uninspired. Coursework was bang average, like C's and whatnot. Went to the exam. I think I ended up with a D. And that was really the only time where I was going, you can't really go on in life with a D in English, especially when I didn't deem myself incapable.
Incapable, yeah.
So I was like, so I decided to resit the English because again I thought it was important.
Yeah.
So I did, and there was two teachers there. Maybe I'll mention them because it's a positive light. But I had Miss Breckle and Mr. Richards. And Mr. Richards was into football.
Yeah.
And he was in my eyes, he was an extremely good teacher.
Yeah.
But because football was my love, obviously, and he sat me down and literally made English so much more accessible to me by linking in the football. He was like, for this coursework, let's write about football. So
yeah,
and he asked me what I was going to write about, and I wrote about Sir Bobby Charlton. Just I can't remember if it was. I think it was the
legend.
it was the 50th anniversary of the
legend.
I think it was the 50th anniversary of the air disaster.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was something I wanted to write about. And I wrote some bits down, threw in some fancy words, and sort of really actually took my time and really went into it. And I got an A star, and I sat there going, "Are you for real? Like I'm a D." And again, just him taking that moment of time, just to bring, it brought it all together for me. Like English wasn't something I wanted to do, and all of a sudden it was something I was, oh, actually, it's really interesting, actually, because I'm writing about something I've got some interest in. And then one of the other pieces of coursework was write a story. So I wrote a story and said, can I write about football again? He was like, you can write about what you like. So I was like, happy days to write about football. And I got an A star again. And he read it and said, actually, if you continue with this actually could be published. And I sat there going, you're for real? Like, and all of a sudden, just these things, like, but him giving me this time changed it big time, and actually got really interested in English and sort of kept it going. And I still write a little bit now, read a lot. But again, looking back at that, if only I had that earlier, perhaps.
That's a frustrating
maybe I would have been a little bit more interested in staying on in education. But again, I can't thank him enough, really, for just giving that time and just giving me the energy. And while we're all in control of our fate and in control of our development, like, there's definitely some factors there, and he was a massive factor for me.
Yeah.
Looking back at that, it really did change my focus. And again, I went on to get a good grade, and I actually ended up taking English at A level. So, but again, it was.
I think a big part of that is the fact that he's taken that time to find that connection, hasn't he? And these personal relationships that people have, or professional relationships that people have with one another, they're so important. They're so important. And as you say, we all are in control of what happens in our lives. But I think it's really only the top elite performers in their area of the world and how it is that have that not motivation, but have that self-control and discipline to be able to motivate themselves even when other people are uninspiring around them. And that's why they are at the pinnacle of what they do, and that's why they inspire other people. But that isn't everyone, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's not. And I think, again, I look back, and I'm sure we'll touch on it shortly, about some things that really to want to progress, you've got to sort of sort out. But again, I'm an example of it. I was definitely someone who, if I was happy and confident, I would really, really push myself and go for it. But again, it would fluctuate, and I did, especially as a youngster, I did like someone to say whether it was good or not, and I could definitely if they said that is not good enough, do this, I could respond to that. I just needed the level of interaction.
Yeah.
And again, that's just me. And I'm sure there's other people out there who, again, need interaction, need to be told, good or bad,
100%.
and they'll go on from there. And like you said, there's definitely some elite athletes, elite personnel out there who are just so self-driven and so self-accountable that they are able to get there.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm sure at times they've had some great experiences from teachers, from family members, from friends, whoever it might be. Obviously, there's the Ian Wright story that I was back on, and the way he speaks about his teacher.
Absolutely.
And again, these things do come together, but like you said, we're all different, and I think that's really the main thing. Really, people do have to remember, both looking at that as an educator and as well as being the person who's being educated or being the learner. It's just really important to remember that we are extremely different, and if you look different to someone else in the journey to get to wherever you might be, it doesn't matter. You're different.
I think that's key, and you look at both our stories, we've gone about it a different way compared to our peers, but and you can look back and you can go, oh, I wish I'd done that, and I wish I'd done that, but you didn't. I didn't do it that way, and it's the process that you've got to start enjoying. And I went into sports coaching, did that for a little while, and I went into education with sort of with disengaged students, with the sort of Prince's Trust and things like that, and now I'm working in the malting industry, and I've taken, they're all very different, those bits, but you've got to take little bits from each of them. And it's definitely made me, I think, a better person. I hope a better person, and it's made me maybe a more all-rounded person potentially, because I've learned lessons along the way. I've learned about myself along the way, and now I'm in a place where I know where I want to go long term, and because of that, I'm more motivated to do it. So I think it's that different journey. You don't be scared to take a different journey. You can always look back. There's people that would have taken what they set out to do at the age of 15, and they get to the age of 50 or retirement, and they would be doing things differently as well. So there's always going to be those lessons that you need to learn along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I again, like you said, don't be scared to deviate on the journey. Like I said, now working in education, I see people around me who have gone A-level degree straight into education, which is great, and I'm sure they've learned many things on their way and achieved. And again, I didn't go that route, but at the same time, I look back and think, you know what? If I hadn't have done the journey, I would be extremely different.
Yeah.
Because of doing this way. For example, like you'll know me from school, like I was, and people probably still think I am a little bit quiet at times. But I'm actually, because of the things I've had to go and do in some of the jobs, I'm more than happy to go and stand in front of 1,000 people or however many people and talk in front of people. I would never have been like that at school. But I've just gone and put myself into situations within jobs and completely learned that and found myself, like you've just said there, and you learn about yourself. And again, I've done things like going to America to go and work in the summer. Again, I probably wouldn't have had that opportunity if I'd have followed
exactly
a different path. But again, that gave me so many life lessons.
Yeah.
And again, it's just taking those, whatever steps you take, whether they're backwards, sideways, or forwards. If the goal remains to move forwards, just learn from every step you take.
That's
And
it.
it really does. Like I say, it really can shape you.
I was always told. So when I was sort of working with the Prince's Trust at West Suffolk College, that, I'll be honest, that was tough. But because you're dealing with sort of 16 to 25-year-olds that are massively disengaged, behavioural issues, sort of mental health that they're having to deal with or battle with, all sorts going on at home, or some of them maybe not even having a home, and so they're massively disengaged, and there'd be a lot of bad days. There'd be a lot of bad days which were so like I'd come home and I'm stressed, and it did, from a personal point of view, it did wear on me for quite a while, to be fair. But my boss at the time, he was ever the optimist, and Ola used to always say, like, there's no bad days, son. There's learning days, and that sticks with me even now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so true.
And again, I find it fascinating, the things that do stick with you. And like I said, obviously that what you just said there. Obviously, we use the phrase always that you win some matches, but sometimes you'll never lose. You'll always learn. But I was, again, some of the things that always stick with you. Some might be quite daft, and some really strong. And I always remember this. This is going to sound extremely daft, but for some reason it always sticks with me. So I'm a massive fan of shark films.
Yeah.
And I watched one of the films. One of the characters just said, "You've got 2 ears and only 1 mouth, which means you should do twice the amount of listening." I mean, how simple is that? But for some reason, I just sat back and sort of took myself out of the film a little bit. I went, "She's so right there."
Yeah.
And again, people will often say to me, and I'm sure other people as well, about being quiet at times. But I do so much listening. I'm absolutely fascinated by what people say.
Yeah.
And I try and get in as much information as possible. And it's always stuck with me that, and I've actually said that to a few of the kids, that it's just, in my mind, that's always stay with me and something I've followed. And I feel as if I've learned a lot from it, just following that very simple mantra.
Yeah. Yeah. It is true. It is true. I have to say, that's something that I'm particularly from a football point of view at the moment. I'm having to learn. I'm having to learn to shut up, because I can get so passionate about things, and it comes out. There are times you just need to shut up. People know what the situation is, and it's it's something that I've definitely learned over the last year, sort of, without taking it on a football route, but in sort of taking over from yourself at Thurston. And I've previously been quite loud, and I don't know, it was maybe why you made me sort of captain, because you would prefer to sort of listen, and I was in your face with people, and it can have a massively detrimental effect if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time. And so I'm trying to learn that, or put into practice, that thing of less is more. Less is more sometimes. There's one one incident sticks out where we'd been turned over 7-0 in a away at Cockfield. And the lads, looking back now, I mean, COVID's quite useful in terms of this, because there's been the gaps where we haven't been able to play. And this was before the second lockdown in November. This was the last game before that. been turned over, and I've fucking gone off on one after, big time, and I'm chucking bags on the floor and everything, and the lads are just sat there looking at me, and the one lad in particular sat looking at me as if to say, "What a dickhead," right? And sorry for the language for the little kiddies, and it wasn't until like sort of I removed myself from that environment and everything, and the emotion of it, I was just like, the lads knew that we'd been turned over and how bad we were. I didn't need to say anything. They know, and actually, sort of morale plummeted after that, and we had to do some real work, Jack and I, in terms of right how are we going to make this positive for restart. And actually, after restart, I went about it a different way, and performances were better. Results maybe weren't, but sometimes that happens at our level, and well, any level. But they were better than 7-0, that's for sure. So I think I should probably listen to that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. There's times, and again, this obviously doesn't always apply to football. It applies across the board, where I've done it. I'm sure everyone's done it. You just say something to fill the gap, and you feel like you just feel like you have to say something. And in those situations, inevitably, it's going to be negative.
Yeah.
Because it's a negative environment. It's a negative situation. Whether or not you're able to, is either trying to find that positive within the situation, or like you said, actually perhaps do some listening and prompt some thought from everyone else, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult because we're all getting those situations, and you do just want to talk and vent your frustration or whatever it might be. It's human nature, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a fine balance, though, isn't there? There is a balance between them, because sometimes things need to be said because you need to get reaction.
Yeah.
So, but I think that comes with experience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And in terms of football managing, I'm certainly very inexperienced. So, in that situation, yeah, there's a lot of learning to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. On the learning side, obviously we've touched on the implications that we as educators and coaches and managers have, and those that have had on us. Again, something Matt said about in a last interview about the accountability, really trying to be accountable and take responsibility of your own development. And again, it's something that I find almost every day that goes by, I find it more and more important to really do so. Again, I've had situations where, looking at a career I've almost gone into meetings gone, why aren't you doing that for me? And it's baffled me at the time. I'm just sat there going, well, that, you should be doing that. Well, actually, am I doing everything for myself to push myself forward?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then go and do some more, isn't it? And again, but it's very difficult to almost motivate you in those situations sometimes, because it can be difficult to be self-accountable. But again, it's so important just to keep pushing yourself further and further, even if you feel as if you've sort of plateaued at somewhere.
Yeah. I think there's a lot at the moment, and maybe it's just my social media and things like that, and who I'm following and the algorithms of life these days. But I keep on seeing a lot about sort of around personal fitness in particular, but also in terms of careers. And I've been guilty of it in the past, where these people that are high performers or sort of PTs that are very good at their job and all of that, football coaches, elite managers, are saying that it's not necessarily all about motivation. So when you're on a personal fitness journey, you're sat there January, all right, yeah, I'm motivated, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna run a marathon, and I'm really motivated. And that motivation will only get you so far. What gets people that are the physical physique that you want to be, or mentally where you want to be, or perhaps they are in a career where they're successful or deemed successful and you want to be there. It's that motivation will only get you so far, and then you'll get to sort of day 14 and you'll go, don't really fancy going out for that run, or I really fancy that donut that has just been offered to me in the office. And what makes the successful people get to where they want to do is that discipline, the self-discipline, to be able to go, no, I've got that end goal in mind, and I've got to be disciplined because I've got to get there. And if I do that now, no, it's not going to do anything for me. Or they're going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, whenever it is, and go out for that run, even though it's snowing, -7 degrees or whatever. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for that run because I'm disciplined. I'm not motivated to do it. I'm not motivated to work a job and do the coursework that I need to do to further my career. I'm not motivated to do that tonight and sit here writing after I've been to work for 10 hours, sit here writing an essay. But actually, I've got the discipline to make myself do it. And I think that ties massively into accountability, doesn't it? Because at the end of the day, if you relate it to personal trainers and fitness, for example, you might have the best personal trainer in the world, and you might pay them for 3 hours a week. But what are you doing with the rest of those hours? Because that's the majority of your week, isn't it? And they can motivate you, and you can feel so unbelievably motivated for those 3 hours. But if you walk away and you're not disciplined, and you eat a Chinese after everyone, then you're not going to get the results that you want. They can't be accountable for you eating that Chinese. And it's the same event, learning, development, anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something, again, again, I'm sure everyone's the same. We've all had moments where perhaps we've not done enough. And I'm definitely one. You hold my hand up. There's times where I've definitely had moments where I've not done enough. But something I've always found, and especially so recently with having to do a lot of online teaching and stuff, where it's very easy just to deviate away from the jobs you need to do.
Yeah.
Just to have a to-do list, for example. But again, to have targets, whether that's personal fitness targets, career targets, football targets, whatever it might be, but actually have them, of course, set over a period of time. Of course, maybe you want to be a top lawyer or whatever it might be, an end goal. But have things that are achievable, but also things that can be achieved very quickly as well. Because if you have a target and you are really putting in the effort, and if you are not able to achieve it in 3 weeks to a month, inevitably you're going to drop off because you've not seen the success.
Absolutely.
It's really, really important just to set, and again, we all do it. We all set targets. Sometimes they are a bit, sometimes unrealistic, but of course we should all aim high. But sometimes, just even if you set yourself an extremely basic target, and again, linking back to the football, we always had the target of simply go and score one goal. But just and obviously, but we also brought in looking at breaking a game down into 15 minutes, just because you are able then to go, right, I've seen some success, I've tasted success. I'm now that's going to push me on to go and get the next 15 minutes, or that's going to go get me the next target I want to go and achieve in whatever.
Yeah,
it's extremely important. And I always think back Again, like I said, I'm obviously working in education at the minute, and I had a conversation with our head teacher a couple of years ago, and he always said that we as a school celebrate success a lot, which I'm sure most schools do. But he said about celebrating the most simple successes. Now, I do a lot of obviously education with special needs.
Yeah.
And sometimes in PE lessons, a child who has caught 5 successful football throws to each other, that could be a massive, massive success. That could be something massive that they've never done before. Celebrate it.
Yeah.
Perhaps they've managed to stay on one leg for 30 seconds, whatever it might be. Celebrate it.
Yeah.
Again, because inevitably we get the feeling from seeing success, we want to go and be more successful.
Yeah.
Again, it's just making sure that we do keep ourselves focused by giving ourselves a chance to be proud and have a successful moment.
I think it's important that you, again, we've spoken about individuals and having different impacts on individuals, and motivation and celebration is a big part of that. And it's also really key that we keep in mind. I had to do it when I was with Prince's Trust and at the college again. Starting points for individuals. Each person is going to have a different starting point, and so our course was a 12-week course, 5 days a week, and it was a personal development course to get these disengaged young people ready for work, ready for education, whatever it was that they was needing to then go and do after that. So for some of them it might have been work, some of them it might have been to go back into sort of full-time education. And we always, as I'm sure that you guys do, we always had sort of KPIs within the department where you would sort of look at things like attendance, and it always used to baffle me that we used to sit there and go, or the college used to sit there and go, right, it's a 5-day-a-week course for 12 weeks, solid, bosh, go. And you're taking people that have done nothing for years potentially with their lives, apart from sort of sit around, recreational drug or drink use, get themselves into trouble with the police and things like that. And then we used to complain, or I didn't used to complain, as a college, we used to complain about how, you know, out of your first 10 days, you've only been here 7 days. It's not very good attendance. We need it to be above 90%. Hang on a second. For other students, having the attendance of over 90% might work because they've come straight from school where they've been doing 5 days a week for years and years. Not for these people though. You know, that's not an achievable goal. And I used to sit there celebrating the fact that they've got through the course actually, or they've got through their first week, or they've attended their first day, or some of the students, it was even because of various reasons, just sitting through half an hour of a session before having to go out of the room before coming back. You know, it's important that you recognize where someone is at the start of the journey and celebrate those little goals, like you say, to then build it up and scaffold that journey for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I've always, I know, like I said, I mentioned it, breaking the football games down into 15-minute spells and stuff like that. And again, it's just something I've always done. And even I do a lot of obviously cycling and running and walking.
Yeah.
Even to push myself to do the distances or whatever it might be. Again, it's just breaking. My target is to obviously go and do X amount of miles or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But it's just to break it down and always try and put that positive spin on, right, you've done half.
Yeah.
That was you've done that. So
yeah.
another one of those again.
Yeah.
Just breaking the bits down, and just I've always found that I've been able to stay focused as a result of that, breaking it down and celebrating that moment. Just go, right,
Yeah.
that was all right. You feel all right. Just another one of those. That's it.
Keep going.
And again, you've done 2/3.
Yeah.
You know, it's the easy bit now. And again, it's just breaking that down and keeping that mind focused on that. So because I could easily have just gone, yeah, do you know what? Just turn around and go home now. Like, but again, it's just that's the way I found it easy and managed and made it easy for me to stay focused during those moments.
It sounds really stupid to say this, but what we're talking about isn't rocket science, is it? But I think people do forget. We're living in an age where social media and influencers and the news and just people's perceptions of how life should be is thrust upon every single individual in society, and that creates pressure, doesn't it? It creates a huge amount of pressure for someone, and pressure that hasn't been there for past generations, and you know, you can't get away from it. It's 24/7. It's on your phone. It's instant.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, isn't it? It is a completely evolving society, for good and for bad.
Yeah.
And like you said, the social media elements. I mean, me and you were back in school. I mean, social media started to come in a little bit, but I didn't really. It wasn't really massive, and you weren't judged on how many followers you had and how many likes your posts had and how many Instagram photos you can put up or whatever it might be. They were completely separate.
Yeah.
And almost you had your identity was what it was in front of you at school or wherever you might be socializing, whatever.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now everyone's got an extra identity that's exposing them perhaps, for good and for bad. But again, it just adds that extra stress. I mean, we all do it. Like, again, we'll inevitably post this video and I will track how many people watch it. That's inevitable.
Yeah.
But again, what do I take from that? That inevitably, if 10 people watch it, well, Luke, you're never coming on again, are you?
Well, I did say at the start before.
But again, it's, you know, there's new ways to measure success and measure, you know, the ways we're progressing, and it does make things more difficult.
Absolutely, and you've got to think. I think it's really important that, you know, we start recognizing as a society the impact that it has, and I think it's starting to happen within things. And we need to recognize it, but not only that what I post might have an impact on other people, but actually what am I doing that's impacting on me? Because again, I have the control over whether I'm going to look at my phone, whether I'm going to follow a certain person, and all of that. Sometimes you need that reality check, and it can be hard to find that reality check because it's not like reality. What you see on social media, that isn't reality. You can get caught up in it. And the way social media works, because it's a business ultimately, the algorithms, you know, the more things that you follow. So if I'm like, right, I want to look like this person. I want to have the six pack, the muscles. I want to have the body fat percentage.
Yeah.
I follow that person to see how that person gets it. Well, because I follow that person, I'm probably likely to start watching their stories. I'm probably likely to like their posts, like their reels, maybe even share it with friends. And because I do all of that, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter then works out that I like that. And what it then does is suggest other people like that. Here, you like that person? Have a look at this person. So then you start following that person as well. And you do the same for that person. And it thrusts it upon you. Yeah. That's not real life. How many people do you see like that when you walk to the shop or go to work, or eventually when we're allowed in pubs? Are you surrounded by people like that? No, you're not. However, when I pick my phone up, it's plastered all over it because that's the way it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we're just overexposed to whether it's perfection or whatever it might be. And
Yeah,
again, it's so easy to get overindulged in this and have almost a poor sight of your own goals and what you want to achieve. And it does add so much pressure, so much extra stress. And
yeah,
it's difficult to get away from. I mean, you know, inevitably we all do. We all pick up our phone and that's what you're going to see as soon as you go on any form of social media.
yeah.
And you know, there's the frustration. It's, of course, there are some good things that come of it. But again,
Absolutely. It's got to be used in the right way as a tool, though, hasn't it? For instance, you'll put this up, and hopefully, someone might watch it somewhere in Siberia. They go, these two guys know what they're talking about, and it might have a positive impact on their life, and that's why we're sort of having this conversation, exploring these subjects. It's not so you can get loads of likes.
no. And again, I mean, this obviously brings us on a little bit to the mental health.
Yeah,
How easy it is as a result of seeing your post that gets no likes, or your picture that only gets 32 likes and your friend down the road has got 10,000 followers, whatever.
yeah,
So easy again to read so much into it, and it prompts thought, which again can be good. But again, at the same time, if it's prompting so much thought, it can prompt negative thoughts and inevitably cause people to have poor mental health as a result.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, as I said, the society that we live in, mental health I think it's slowly starting to come round where it's not a taboo subject. We're two men that are, I wouldn't say macho, but we're two men that sort of go to the gym, go to the pub, have football in our lives and things like that. And we're still having this conversation now about mental health, which is a good thing. It really is a good thing. I worry that through all the talk of mental health, that actually we skim over that thing that everyone's got a mental health. It's a spectrum. Everyone has got mental health issues. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
when we say mental health issues, that's not bloody hell, get them in a straitjacket and get them in a loony bin type thing. That old sort of way of looking at it, and it's not a new way of looking at it where everything has to be labelled.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very. That's almost becoming the new trend, not trend, but the new cycle, part of the journey that we're going through as society, where if someone worries about something, then they're depressed. If someone gets nervous about a particular situation, then they've got anxiety. And sort of kids, the worrying thing is kids at a very young age are being sort of diagnosed with this, and you hear of even dogs being diagnosed with it and things like that. And now I'm not saying that's wrong. However, sometimes by putting a label on that, particularly with children, that then sticks with them throughout their life.
Yeah.
And it's about managing that. Someone can have depression and still be happy.
Absolutely.
Someone happy can still be depressed. Yeah.
100%.
Because it constantly moves up and down, and people need to sort of look at that and go, right, actually, we need to start looking at how we manage our mental health.
Yeah, and I think, like you've said, you've hit the nail on the head. It's a spectrum. We all me and you sit somewhere on there, and we all fluctuate inevitably, and many factors will contribute to that. And I think one thing that really, really is annoying for me is a lot of people at the minute obviously are saying, pick up the phone and call your friend. They might have mental health issues. No, call your bloody friends anyway and have a conversation, regardless of where they might sit on this spectrum.
Yeah.
And actually, we should, as a society, as whoever, care for people regardless. Anyway, it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be a thought of, oh, he may actually be having mental health issue. We should just be speaking to people and dropping in,
connecting with one another,
and connecting people.
connecting with one another. We spoke earlier about how your English teacher sat down and spoke to you about your love for football and the impact that had, the positive impact that had on your English grade. That's a connection, isn't it?
Absolutely. And again, you've highlighted it. I know we keep sort of bad mouthing social media a little bit, but ironically, of course, they're trying to connect, but actually it's largely in a way breaking the connection.
Yeah.
And again, going back to what I was saying, it's just regardless of whether someone is more likely to struggle in situations, speak to people anyway, and drop in, and people, and it's so important just to try and build up connection with people, regardless of how you feel they're doing in the situation, because we're all going through a very unforeseen pandemic at the minute, and again, we're all in a situation where none of us really know and have experienced something like this, and it's going to be difficult on everyone. But again, it's highlighted the need to reconnect, but that it shouldn't just fall upon that. We should all be doing it anyway.
You would hope that, although we've got sort of social media, like you say, which is a tool for connection. That's the idea of it. That's why it came about. And we've got mobile phones now, and we can do all that. Although we put those restrictions on because of the lockdowns and things like that, you can still build those relationships and have those connections. However, you do really hope, or I really hope that, when we're out of lockdown, that you see that people are really looking after one another, not just their friends, not for the sake of doing it for mental health, but actually just building a friendship, building a relationship with one another in person. Hopefully we appreciate that person to person, human to human interaction, because that is a basic thing of humans and who we are and how we work. That if you see someone walking down the street, whether it's girl, female, or whatever, and they are happy to you and they smile and they give you that time, you walk away from there and you feel a little bit better. However, a number of times, everyone's going on walks these days, and I try and say hello to everyone, even when I'm blowing out my backside because I'm running. I try to at least give a little nod or something like that if I can manage it.
Yeah.
So many people don't do it. However, when I was growing up, running around villages and whatnot, and I would go out for runs with Dad, everyone seemed to do it. And you do it. So next walk you go on, for anyone watching, next walk that you go on, if you're seeing lots of people, try and say hello or a little nod or a smile. And I guarantee the older generation will be much more receptacle to that. So they'll take that, but they'll actually give it back as well. And it's the younger generation, our generation, that stick their headphones in and try and ignore you as you're trying to say hello to them. Guarantee it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so vital for the development and for also maintaining mental health. And I would say I obviously do a lot of walking and absolutely love. I mean, it's one of the things I love doing is simply just acknowledging people.
Yeah.
The amount of stories I've got of just simply going out hiking and saying hello to people and ended up, walking miles with them and finding out everything about their life story or whatever it might be. And again, these things, I know we're obviously kind of not experiencing them because of the pandemic, and we're limited to what we can do, but it's so important just to try and connect in this way. And again, I was saying to you earlier just how doing these interviews I've done recently with other coaches and people, I just want to stay on the call all night, because again, we've been deprived of it a little bit, of the conversations and interactions. But again, just conversation can have such a positive influence on your mental state. Like, inevitably we'll both, I hope, leave this conversation, feeling better and having really enjoyed just simply expressing ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have to say I've been quite lucky with that over lockdown, because I work in food production. I'm seen as a key worker, so I've still been allowed to go onto site where I work at Muntons and have interaction with people. And there was a couple of weeks where I had COVID, and I had to stay in the house, obviously, and all of that. And getting back to work and seeing people that actually you take for granted that relationship is a positive relationship. You maybe think, oh, that's so and so, they work down the corridor. I say hi to them every day, but getting back to work and saying hi to them, it was like, oh, that's quite nice, actually. That's quite nice. So I can definitely understand those people that have had Shield and things like that. It's been very tough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, hopefully once we're out of the lockdown, it will make other people realize that they do want to do more to connect with people, and they do value those communications they have on a daily basis, and whether it's in a workplace or going to get your paper down the shop, whatever it might be. I think one thing for mental health for me is, and we did it when we started this conversation before we went on recording, inevitably, especially at the minute because of the pandemic, we go straight to negative. There was me slating technology. Because I'm not, I'm struggling to teach with technology, and I even struggle to get in this call with technology. It's so easy, and negativity speaks louder than positivity. And
definitely spreads a lot quicker. Definitely,
absolutely. And it's so easy just simply to go, look, there's a negative point. Oh, and that then leads on to another one.
But even without your conversation about technology and that, at the moment, every conversation starts with it because it's, oh, how's lockdown? Well, no one's going to turn around and go, oh, it's been amazing. I bloody loved it. I tell you what, I have never been better. Never. It's never going to happen.
No.
So you're absolutely right. Actually, it's a good observation.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I do it all the time. When again, like you, I've been a key worker and I've been in school, and I have spoken to the occasional person on the corridor and whatever when we're allowed to at 2 meter distance. And again, inevitably, we may have a laugh, but inevitably we will come about saying, oh, isn't it so frustrating teaching online? So and so doesn't turn up, and 20% of the kids are in lessons or whatever. Straight away it's just into the activity. And I've done it, and it's so easy. And again, I highlighted for me how important it is to find positives everywhere. And like we said earlier about celebrating success, and regardless of how big those successes are. Really trying to find. Again, I found target setting just really something that's definitely uplifted my mental state. And really trying to just find a positive. And again, someone said to me the other day, because I went on a bit of a rant, and I said 2 or 3 people had given me some bad feedback, and again, I always thought of someone that didn't mind a bit of bad feedback, but it sort of started to grate on me a little bit. I sat there going, I had 2 or 3 people say that wasn't very good. I thought
that's building up.
And do you know what? And like the person said to me, yeah, but what about the 10 or 12 other people that said it was really good? I said, oh, yeah. And again, it was so easy, again, because we're exposed at the minute to so much negativity, to just latch on to it. And I sat on it for about an hour, and I'm so glad that person did tell me to go, hang on a minute. What about those 10 positive comments?
I sort of, it's obviously, as I said, very inexperienced when it comes to management in terms of football. So the day that I tested positive for COVID, it's January, mid-January as well. So it's around sort of Blue Monday or whatever they call it, Black Monday, most depressing day of the year or whatever it is. It's around that point. We're all in lockdown, no football, and so myself, the chairman, and the bloke who sorts the money out at first, and we're having conversations about the fees and things like that. And there's stuff going on in the group and people complaining and saying, not saying that I don't agree with it, but they're saying that they don't agree with it in not so many words and things like that. And people are thinking about leaving because of it and things like that. And I was like, what? And I've lost my head, right? I've lost my head. I've just gone, right, well, money needs paying. I left the WhatsApp group, right? Left the WhatsApp group. And there was a meeting about it on Skype with myself, Cause the chairman, and Jack, and Jack the assistant as well. And that we were meeting about other things, but that came up in that evening. And again, I've never been so irate about such a small thing. And it was only a couple of people. Everyone else has said, yeah, cool, I'll pay it, or had paid it. A couple of people, and that just set me off. Boom. And you're so right that actually take a minute, come out of that, have a look at the big picture. Have a look at the big picture, right? Yes, so that's a bit of bad feedback that you've had, but you're so right. What about the rest of the good stuff?
Yeah, it's I know how this obviously then links back into what we were saying earlier about learning and development and stuff, and and everyone will do it. It's that kind of almost perfectionist nature, and you want it to be 100% and no negative from it. And again, it's so difficult, isn't it? But it's, I guess, so important to go, actually, you look at that positive side.
And that's why self-reflection is so important, isn't it? And hopefully you learn from that self-reflection, and you improve for the next time something like that happens. You take a minute and you stop. So like I'll hopefully, I've had to send a message to the captain and say, oh, can you add me back to the group, please? And as soon as I've got back into the group, I've had to go, oh, really sorry, boys. Sort of lost my head over that one. And that'll stick in my mind, because hopefully, so that in future, just take a minute, Luke, have a breather, go for a walk, go for a run, go and talk to someone. Don't deal with everything, because I hadn't told everyone that I'm sort of feeling rubbish because of COVID and work was tough and all of that. I had not told anyone that. So they're just looking at me going, it's only a couple of people that haven't paid, Luke, what's your problem? But it's that big picture, isn't it? You've got to reflect on that and go, what can I learn from that? No bad days, learning days.
And like I say, I'm not just obviously preaching to people. I'm simply saying this is things I've done as well. And again, at this time, I found it easy just to latch onto a negative, and inevitably you find another one, and things can quickly get on top of you.
Yeah.
Again, it's just, and you've hit the nail on the head there. You can take a moment to think about something before you act upon it.
Yeah.
And again,
yeah, absolutely.
And I know we all sit there thinking, oh, we don't have time to do this, to do that. There is time to just take a thought, especially when you're faced with just something that's frustrated you or caused you to have that negative thought. There is time just to process it. And there's no harm in processing it. There's no harm at all. And it's better to process it than to act upon it without it being processed.
Yeah.
And then regret it, of course, later.
And if you haven't got that time, if your time is that precious, I always think you'll find time, because there's 24 hours in the day and you sleep for most of them or something like that. And if you haven't got the time, you can't find the time, go and do something else, change it up, go and do something else that's constructive, because you'll feel better for doing something constructive to go then back to it, won't you?
Yeah, yeah. No, and again, obviously linking this mental health now into exercise and the importance. Again, I'm sure that most people found lockdown number one
Yeah,
easy, number two and three, and the weather would have played a massive part in that because, of course,
yeah,
it's
huge,
attractive to go
huge.
outside.
Yeah, yeah. Most people lockdown one. If you were stuck at home at the weekend, or if you were stuck at home because you were furloughed and things like that, you sit in the garden, don't you? And you go, oh, what lovely weather we've got. I thought, I wish we could go and do that, but at least we've got the sun.
And straight away, again, this is just another highlight of straight away, and that would have come into conversation, just general conversation with people. What lovely weather! It's a
Yeah,
positive straight away.
yeah, yeah. Or you turn that negative into a positive, where you go, oh, I wish we could go into a beer garden now. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, at least we've got the sun here. Um,
Yeah,
so you're ending it on a positive.
yeah, and then again, it's so important. And as we said, like obviously, it was easier during lockdown number one because it was easier to go outside to do your exercise. But it again, it's so important to remain active, keep active, and try and do as much as you can. And even just going outside for a walk, it doesn't have to be a
Yeah,
week hit workout.
yeah,
It can be a walk around the local park or wherever it might
yeah.
be. And again, it's
Just
just
move.
so important just to get yourselves moving.
Yeah,
And again, I kind of got my love and drive for fitness and movement from actually a negative mental situation where I can't remember how old I was, but it was sort of about 9 years ago now. So, and I was, as typical young people do, I was most weekends down the pub drinking beer and drinking
yeah,
quite a lot, and just wasn't educated. I just didn't do the right things and put on a bit of weight. And I went to Hollister, and if you remember, they've got the mirrors in the changing rooms all the way
I did.
around.
I did not step foot in a Hollister in my life. I don't think. I
Uh,
might have done once. I hated it. Is that the
so
one with music and the dark lights and all
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah, dark light,
Yeah,
so you can never see which color your t-shirt was.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
There's a
and
lovely blue t-shirts against yellow, mate.
yeah, and everyone would be walking around in flip-flops and some.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, I went into the changing room, and I mean, it doesn't help either. Having a really big nose and you're looking at four different angles really isn't great either. But I looked at myself in the mirror and just went, I, I really, I looked at myself and went, I feel so unattractive, and I felt actually I'm fat, and I called myself fat, and I sat there going, I've never called myself fat before. Like,
yeah,
I got really, really disheartened by it. And I decided just to go, right, I'm going to go in and cycle more and do more, and
yeah,
actually realized how much of an impact physical activity had on me. And of course, it helped me uh, trim down and lose the weight I had put on.
yeah,
It just left me feeling absolutely buzzing and so much better for it. And again, it was just taking that moment of I was, I wasn't, it wasn't a good place. It really was. I was actually, really I hated myself looking at it.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was, something I've never really experienced before, and I've gone right, and then gone and done something about it. But actually found that, of course, the impact was there, and I felt better in the way I looked, but it just left me feeling happy in every way, and it's so important
yeah,
to remain
yeah.
active. And again, luckily, I had sort of found it in that way.
I think I think for myself, I've always like fluctuated with my weight quite badly actually. And if I look at it now, I think I've known this for a couple of years actually, maybe even sort of 5 years. Um, if you got a timeline of pictures and put them up on the wall of me over the years, right? It'd be a bit like sort of horror show in a way. But I would be able to correlate my weight going up and my emotions and my mental health maybe not being healthy at that point, and my weight coming down, me being happy, or maybe not so much happy, but sort of like content or happier, and that would map it out quite well actually, looking at it. And you have those moments where you go, I don't know where it comes from. You go, right, I need to have a word with myself here. Look at what am I doing? What am I doing here? This isn't good enough. It could be going into a questionable shop such as Hollister with yourself. I mean, I'd never go in there myself. And as I said, terrible shop, Tom. Or it could be, I tell you what, there was one, you stitched me up a treat actually with it. There was one a couple of years ago, and there was a photographer. I don't even know who it was. Might have been Jason's missus or something like that. Had come down to the cave, and we're taking pictures. And it was towards the end of the season. And there was a picture, and I'd been playing that season. I thought I was all right. And I saw this picture of myself, and I was disgusted. I got it saved on my phone, right? I was absolutely mortified and disgusted, because I always knew that I don't think I'm ever going to be slender. It's not my build necessarily. And I've always carried a little bit of weight, even when my weight's sort of come down. I looked at that though, and I was like, that's disgusting. And you posted it on social media. Not only was it on my social media, I was tagged in it. You've posted it on Flippin' Thurston FC's one. So loads of people can see it. And I'm like, oh my God, Tom, you've got to take that down. But actually, that was the catalyst for me going, right, actually, I need to go running. I don't think I lost that much weight in the end that time, but I certainly felt happier in myself. And even sort of last year, Christmas, going into lockdown, probably even before lockdown, carrying a bit of weight, and lockdown, I went, right, reset button, let's have a word. Lost a couple of stone, and sort of coming out of lockdown and going back to like football and the kit fitting a little bit better. I was like, oh, cool, nice, that feels better. But then starting to see one another as well, and people going, oh, you shifted a little bit, haven't you? And sort of tats and that at 6-a-side going, oh, you've done really well. No, seriously, mate, you've done really well. The blokes don't normally do that, do they? I think that's where society is getting better with the mental health thing, that recognition and that. And it's not just that though. It's that getting into the habit of doing something that is good for you and gives you your time that is positive and constructive to you. And sort of there's nothing better for me. I wouldn't say I'm a natural born runner whatsoever. But going out, countryside, sticking my headphones in, half an hour, and I couldn't even tell you what I think about. Sometimes I'm thinking about like random things at work. Oh, I should really do that. Or I'll come back and I'll go, oh, Paula, by the way, I was thinking about this. Oh, why were you thinking about that? Oh, I was just running. And it is almost like meditation, isn't it? Where you're concentrating on running or where you're going, and it's taking away that other part of the mind where it's constantly whirring, slows it down almost.
It really does. It really does.
Just zone out, don't you?
Yeah. There's 2 points I just want to make from that. I was just going to rewind a second. That you've just proven there how powerful your and individual's mind is. That I didn't think anything of that picture when I posted it.
No.
But how powerful it is that you obviously, you see it, and again, other people would do it if they saw a picture themselves. They examine it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And perhaps to a degree, you were worried that other people would examine that and go, "Oh, look at that! Thurston have got a rather large player, or whatever," and you're thinking about other people examining it and stuff. And again, about how powerful that is. But again, that's just the nature of our mind.
And yeah, particularly in football circles, it can be quite ruthless from time to time. And I've always thought that to a certain degree. And it's bizarre where the lines are in sort of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable to be said on the football pitch. Like you couldn't say something about someone's mum because people will go mad, for example. And you can't say something about, obviously, about sort of ethnicity and beliefs and that. However, you can be slated for being ginger, or you can be slated for being Scottish even, or Scouse, or fat, and referees won't even turn a blind eye to that. Won't even turn a blind eye, and it's seen acceptable within, and it can be quite harsh. And I still do, the fat one all the time, and sort of I became a little bit numb to it. However, seeing that picture, I was like, whoa, that's me. And I was calling myself it, which was bad.
Yeah.
True, correct, maybe. But,
I mean, like I say, inevitably, we've got to, in ourselves, we've got to manage those situations as best we can. Because inevitably, you will see a picture or whatever, and it will perhaps bring about a negative thought. But again, I think you make a really good point there about it's acceptable to call someone fat in a way, on a football pitch or whatever it might be, with banter and stuff. And there's, of course, I've been a part of it, and there's so much great things come of banter and having a laugh.
Yeah.
I think just sometimes, again, it's just that thought of say it and have a laugh with your teammates or whatever it might be, but do also just think about your peers and stuff, and how they might react. And even if you're not the one saying anything, or even if they're not the butt of the joke or whatever, just simply have a thought about everyone, and like I say, enjoy the laugh. And again, that's going to have the massive benefit to our mental health, is to have that banter. But again, just as a team, banter as much as possible, but also just come together a little bit, and do make sure that you look after each other, and do consider the thoughts going on in other people's minds, because again, we're all going to be different, and whether we're prone to taking criticism a bit harsher than others, that's just the way it is. But again, just do always just give it a thought. And I think sometimes it really does frustrate me about the amount of people that refer to society as a bit of a snowflake society, and people say how people overreact and stuff. And again,
it's brutal at times, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but perhaps we do overreact a little bit. But again, it's natural at the minute, because we're exposed to so much.
Yeah.
And again, everyone has time to think. And again, if you're surrounded in a negative thought, inevitably it's going to happen.
Be accountable for it, though, as well.
Yeah.
I put myself out there for that picture to be taken, that picture to shock me, because I hadn't been accountable and self-disciplined or motivated, whatever you want to call it. I hadn't been accountable for my health. And it's something that, as I've got older, I've sort of valued a little bit more my health, because as you get older, you sort of realise that you're not indestructible, are you? As you maybe once thought you were. So if something does hurt you, does shock you, why is that? What do you have control over that?
Yeah.
You can't stop that person taking that picture and putting it on social media.
No.
You can't stop that person calling you that. And to a certain degree, yes, it is harsh, but it's also an observation if it's true. And you can make a change to that as well.
Absolutely. Agree wholeheartedly. And again, you bring it back to the accountability again. It's another situation that you've encountered, and you've taken the right action. And I think, like I say, the mental health and the learning and development really does come back into full circle there. And one thing I was thinking about earlier, again, like I say, having done these interviews, it did prompt so much thought. And there was always a phrase I used on the sideline, so you'll be familiar with it. And I often said, "Make it work."
Yeah.
And again, it was just something I was thinking whilst on a walk the other day, just how apparent that is for me, just across the board, football or wherever. And I meant it obviously when it would really frustrate me when a player would overhit a pass, for example, and there'd be no reaction. Well, yes, it was a bad pass,
Yeah.
but now make it work and make it into something,
Yeah.
and go and react to it.
Yeah.
Again, that's, you know, inevitably in life, whatever capacity, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do something. You're going to make it work. You know, if you've not
Yeah.
quite done something as good, go and make it work. Do something about it. Address it. Don't just leave it.
Yeah.
And let
Yeah.
it change. You go and change that and make it work.
Yeah. And that's the again, it sort of goes back full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning. You know, it's a journey. Just because you make a mistake and you don't end up going on the path that you want to go on, doesn't mean that you can't get to where you want to go still. Yeah. You've just got to find a different way, work around it, make it work.
There was something I just wanted to bring up. I'm hoping we got a bit of time to say it. So again, all these things just have been prompted a lot of thought with me lately, and I recently lost my dad, who died in November, and again that brought about a lot of thought and sort of review of situations and thought back to what he did and so forth. And I didn't really think much about it when I did it, but so again, using a football example, but we would go into the change room and we would have some core values.
Yeah.
And something that I always put in there was pride and being proud. And I was always passionate about that bit of it. And it wasn't until a review I sort of sat there going, but why, why the pride and the proud? And I actually said this at his funeral, and going back to my dad was my coach.
Yeah.
I played as a youth player, and I mean, he would have admitted he wasn't the best coach. You know, he sort of just took it because he was a parent. But he was so proud of the team.
Yeah.
We would often get stuff, to be fair, but he'd never stop on the sideline. He would always just remain as active as he was, but it was because he was always so proud. And again, using that as an opportunity just to reflect on that and sort of see again how a learning example of him as a coach for me is now. I would now obviously always, if someone said, what is your core, some of your core values taken going forward, I look back on the pride and think how important it is to have pride in what you represent. And again, having been taught that by him, it was so powerful to me on reflection. About just taking that pride in what you do and how apparent that is to life, not just at football. Of course, I learned this lesson at football, but how important it is just to have pride in your work or being proud of what you represent.
So true. Those, I mean, we're all products of our environment to a certain extent, aren't we? So those core values, I think you're spot on. It's from influential figures in your life, parents, obviously, certain teachers, a coach, and I think that's the really powerful thing. I mean, I don't think I'd be a very good youth coach to a certain degree. However, what I do enjoy is that sort of bringing the next generation through and what you can teach them and what impact you can have on them, and the things that you can teach them through football that
Mm.
actually also relate to life. It's huge.
Yeah, yeah. And again, like, I mean, this is, it's proof here of us trying to just make a video of us talking about things away from the game a little bit, but how
Yeah.
they coincide. Whatever sport you might play, whatever interest you might have, they will cross over, and lessons you learn in those, interests or whatever it might be, they really do cross over and give you so
Yeah.
much going forwards in life in general, isn't it?
Absolutely. They become the sort of real things that keep you going through life at times, to keep you going through those tough moments, and also for you to enjoy the good moments though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm hoping that people have stayed in this long
Yeah.
and have listened to the duration. I mean, I've really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed talking to you and
Yeah.
about obviously the mental health and self development, etc. And it's again some real key topics at the minute.
Yeah. Hopefully people either enjoy it or take something from it. As I said, some of it, or all of it, it's not rocket science. It's not something that we've gone, I'll reinvent the wheel. It's all stuff that people have learned and know about it, but perhaps it just acts as a reminder. We all need that reminder from time to time, don't we?
Yeah. And again, I would really, as I said, we've obviously said about trying to connect with people and not always have your headphones in when you're walking around, and
Yeah.
making sure you acknowledge people and stuff. But
say hello to me if you're on a run.
but do of course try where you can. The podcasts have been brilliant, and it's actually really during lockdown that I found podcasts, and
Yeah.
Again, it's such a good way of self-development and self-improvement. But again, just make sure that you're not doing it too much, and you're sort of losing connection with the outside
It's a
world.
positive tool.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Well, really appreciate you coming on, Luke, and
No,
really good to
thank
have
you
a
for having
chat.
me on, Tom. It's from a selfish point of view as well. It's been nice to just have a chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. No,
So
really
thank you.
enjoyed it, and thanks again,
No worries, mate.
and we'll see you.